Sarah was finishing a client mock-up when her phone lit up with a number she didn't recognize.
Miss Whitmore, this is Special Agent David Reyes with the FBI. Are you aware you've been listed as an egg donor at Coastal Reproductive?
I've never donated eggs. There must be some mistake.
The agent's voice stayed steady, but his next words landed like a gut punch.
Your signature appears on consent forms dated 14 months ago for 2 egg retrieval cycles. We're investigating Coastal Reproductive for harvesting without proper consent.
14 months ago, the cyst check, but that was just a routine exam.
Her hand tightened around the phone. The room suddenly felt too quiet.
Miss Whitmore, you've been identified as a potential victim in a federal investigation. I need you to come down to our field office tomorrow morning.
Yes, of course, I'll be there.
She set the phone down and stared at the screen, the FBI's number still glowing like a warning. Someone had signed her body away, and she had no idea who. The next morning, Sarah walked into the FBI field office, her stomach tight.
Thanks for coming in, Miss Whitmore. I know this is difficult.
He opened a thick file and spread the forms across the table.
This consent form has your signature, but our forensic expert confirmed it's a forgery.
I never signed anything for egg retrieval. I don't remember any of this.
The clinic harvested eggs without proper consent and sold them. You are on our victim list.
They stole a part of my body while I was sedated.
The violation felt physical, even months later.
Think carefully. Anyone who could have gotten hold of your insurance card or ID.
The only people she'd ever trusted with that were her family. And now, a shadow fell over every memory she had of that procedure. That evening, Sarah sat on her couch, holding a framed photo of her and her mother.
That cyst check Mom set the whole thing up, said it was routine.
The memory sharpened, her mother driving her to the clinic, signing forms at reception, while Sarah filled out paperwork.
I was sedated for that exam. I woke up groggy and Mom said everything was fine.
Her fingers trembled as she picked up the phone and dialed.
Sarah, honey, twice in one day? What's the occasion?
Mom, that cyst check you set up years ago. Where exactly did you take me?
The gynecologist downtown. Silly. Why are you bringing that up now?
It was Coastal Reproductive, and they used my name. Did you know about that?
A pause stretched too long on the line. Then Linda laughed, brittle and wrong. The next morning, Sarah sat across from Agent Reyes again, her voice hollow as she recounted the call.
She laughed, said I was being dramatic, that it was just a checkup.
David's expression didn't change. He slid a new document across the table.
Bank records. Linda Whitmore received $24,000 per cycle from Coastal Reproductive, 2 payments 14 months ago.
Sarah stared at the numbers, her mother's name in black and white.
She sold me. My own mother sold my eggs for money.
We also pulled insurance claims. Your policy was billed for 2 egg retrieval procedures under a false diagnosis.
The room tilted. Every memory of her mother's help twisted into something monstrous.
We'll need your full cooperation, Miss Whitmore. Are you willing to help us build this case?
Yes, whatever it takes. I want her to pay for this.
David opened a second folder. The money trail didn't end with her mother.
The $48,000 was transferred to an account belonging to your sister, Jessica Whitmore. She used it to pay off credit cards.
Jessica knew. She took the money and never said a word.
We have records of calls between Jessica and the clinic. She was aware the payments were tied to the egg sales.
Sarah's hands shook as she stepped into the hallway and dialed Jessica's number.
Sarah? What's wrong? You sound... Did you know what Mom did to me? That she sold my eggs and gave you the money?
No, it wasn't like that. She said it was a loan. I was desperate.
The sobs on the other end turned into pleading, but Sarah ended the call and leaned against the cold wall. Her mother had betrayed her, and now her sister. The family she thought she had didn't exist. Linda's carefully arranged smile vanished the instant she opened her front door.
Sarah, what are you doing here? You look like you haven't slept in days.
Sarah pushed past her into the living room, pulling the thick FBI file from her bag.
I know everything, Mom. Coastal Reproductive, $48,000. The forged signature on donor consent forms. I've heard this tone before. She's about to twist the truth until I question my own memory.
You are imagining things. That was a routine ovarian cyst check. I was helping you.
You harvested my eggs while I was sedated. You stole a part of my body and sold it.
I did what was necessary. You were fine. Jessica needed the money. You're being ungrateful.
The cold indifference in her mother's voice extinguished the last flicker of hope she'd clung to since childhood.
Agent Reyes, I am all in. Testifying, wiretaps, whatever you need. She will not get away with this.
The next afternoon, Reyes placed a thick stack of insurance forms on the table. Each one carried the same forged signature pattern.
Your mother wasn't alone. We've identified 13 other families. Mothers, aunts, sisters, all forging consent for relatives.
He led her to the evidence board. Mugshots, transaction lines, a nationwide network of betrayal.
13 other women went through this. She was part of something systematic. It wasn't just her.
To make the case airtight, we need a direct admission. Could you wear a wire when you speak to her again?
The word wire hung in the air, a line between victim and operative.
Recording my mother. Hearing her admit what she did to me. Can I actually do that? I'll do it. Set up the meeting. She won't suspect a thing if I play along.
They spent an hour rehearsing. Questions, triggers, the rhythm of a casual conversation that could trap a criminal. Sarah left with a recorder hidden in her jacket and a date to meet her mother for coffee the following morning. The coffee shop was quiet when Sarah arrived, choosing a corner booth where the light wouldn't catch her face.
Linda breezed in 10 minutes late, air kissing Sarah's cheek as if nothing had happened.
I've been thinking about that clinic visit. How did you even find a place that would do that?
A friend told me about Coastal Reproductive. They pay cash for donor eggs if the paperwork is right. I just filled out the forms in your name. It was easy. They didn't ask questions as long as the signature matched.
And the money? That was all for Jessica?
$24,000 per cycle. Your sister was drowning in debt. I did what I had to do.
The words dropped into the quiet air, recorded crystal clear. Linda took a sip of her latte, looking pleased.
I have to go.
Sarah climbed into the back seat of the sedan and pulled the recorder from her jacket. David took the recorder, examined it, then pressed play. The sound of Linda's confession filled the car.
This is exactly what we needed. Clear, clean. You did the right thing.
But the praise didn't reach her. The reality of what she'd done slammed into her chest like a physical blow.
I turned my mother in. I recorded her confessing. What kind of daughter does that? What happens now? To her? To Jessica? And will I have to testify?
They'll be arrested within the week. Then it's a long legal road. Trials, depositions. You will almost certainly have to testify. It's your choice, Sarah. But the case is stronger with you. Without you, she might walk.
She nodded, but the words blurred. The car felt small, suffocating.
Testifying against my own family. Could I survive that?
Outside, the sun was climbing, but inside, the FBI was already drafting arrest warrants. There was no turning back. Later that morning, Reyes called Sarah back into the interview room. He had more files, thicker than before.
We've identified 14 families in total. Your case is part of a national fraud network. Mothers, sisters, forging consent for relatives.
He spread photos across the table, young women, unknowing donors, their faces stared up, a gallery of violation.
These women, they didn't know either. This wasn't just my family. It was a pattern of people selling their own children.
As for your sister, her credit card debt wasn't just overspending. She had a gambling problem. Bank records show heavy losses at casinos.
The betrayal sharpened. Sarah's jaw tightened as the pieces locked into place.
Did the other victims cooperate? Are any of them testifying?
Some are. Some are too afraid. But every voice adds weight to the case.
Sarah looked down at the faces of the other women. The fear, the violation, it mirrored her own. She would not let them be silenced.
My mother and sister turned me into a commodity. But if I stay quiet, I let them do it to others. I won't be quiet.
3 days later, FBI teams arrived at 2 addresses before dawn. No knocks, just warrants. At Linda's home, she answered in a silk robe, her composure cracking for only a second.
You are making a mistake. I haven't done anything illegal.
Across town, Jessica sobbed as agents cuffed her. She kept repeating Sarah's name.
Sarah will help me. She has to.
Sarah watched the arrests from a monitor in Reyes's office. Live feed, no sound, just the silent collapse of her family.
They look so small now. Not the powerful figures who controlled my life.
An hour later, a counselor from Victim Services sat across from her. Her voice was calm, the box of tissues untouched.
What happens next? Can I sue them for what they took from me?
The counselor nodded and handed her a card. An attorney specializing in civil damages would call later that afternoon. The attorney detailed the civil case, suing the clinic for bodily harm and Linda for fraud. The compensation could be large.
But to testify in the criminal trial, I'd have to face my mother in court. Stare at her from the stand.
Her phone buzzed. The county jail.
Sarah, please. They said I am looking at years. You can't let them. I was desperate. The gambling. Mom said it was a loan. I didn't know the whole truth.
She's still lying. She knew the money came from the clinic. But if I testify, she goes to prison.
You are my sister. I am begging you. Don't do this.
Is sisterhood still real after all the lies? Or is it just a word they use to manipulate me?
She ended the call. The apartment pressed in around her. The decision wasn't made. But the weight of it bent her forward until her head touched the back of her hands. The next morning, Sarah drove to the one place where love had never been a weapon, her late grandmother's cottage. She sat on the front porch, surrounded by the flowers her grandmother had planted decades ago. Nothing here demanded proof of worth.
Grandma never called humiliation a lesson. She just held me when I cried and said I deserved softness.
In that quiet, Sarah understood. Not testifying meant letting the pattern continue. Testifying meant ending it. Back in her apartment, she lifted the small framed photo of her grandmother from the mantel.
If I stay quiet, I am protecting the people who sold me. I won't be their shield.
She set the photo down and dialed the prosecutor's office with steady hands.
This is Sarah Whitmore. I am ready to testify. I want to face my mother in court.
The words left no room for retreat. A line drawn across her old life.
Grandma would have wanted me to break the chain, so I will.
3 weeks later, Sarah sat in a sterile conference room. A court reporter and 2 prosecutors opposite her. Linda's attorney leaned forward, skeptical. How can you be sure you didn't consent after sedation?
Because I went in for a cyst check. A painful, invasive procedure was done without my knowledge. Consent forms require conscious agreement. I was unconscious.
The questions grew sharper, but she didn't crack. By the end, the court reporter had a record of unwavering testimony. Days later, Reyes called with news that changed the board.
Jessica took a deal. She'll plead guilty to fraud conspiracy and testify against your mother. Linda is alone.
Jessica turning on Mom doesn't undo what she did, but it means I won't be the only one saying what happened.
2 months later, the trial date was set. The morning of, Sarah stood in the courthouse lobby, gripping the strap of her bag. Through the doors, she could see the wooden benches, the flags, the empty witness stand. Everything was about to become official.
No more calls, no more evidence files, just my voice, in front of a jury, with her watching. I am ready.
Opening statements began. Linda's lawyer told the jury that Sarah was exaggerating a family dispute to collect a civil settlement. Then the bailiff called her name. Sarah rose from the gallery, walked to the stand, and swore to tell the truth.
She is staring at me with the same coldness she had when she told me I was ungrateful. I will not look away. The agent told me my name was on donor consent forms at Coastal Reproductive. I had never donated eggs or consented to any procedure.
She recounted the cyst check, the sedation, the forged signature. With each detail, the courtroom grew quieter.
When I saw the bank records with my mother's name, I understood that the woman who drove me to the clinic had sold my eggs while I was unconscious.
On cross-examination, Linda's attorney leaned in. "Isn't it true you stand to gain hundreds of thousands in a civil lawsuit?"
The money won't undo what was taken from me. I am here because a crime was committed, and I am the victim.
The attorney tried again, but Sarah's answers stayed measured. She held the jury's attention like a steady flame. As Sarah returned to her seat, she glanced at the jury. Several of them had stopped writing and were simply watching her. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. When they filed back in, the foreman held a piece of paper. No one breathed. The verdict was read: guilty on all counts: identity fraud, healthcare fraud, aggravated battery. Linda's face didn't crack, but her hands went still on the table. Jessica began to sob behind her. Weeks later, the same courtroom. The judge called both defendants forward for sentencing. Linda received 5 years in federal prison. Jessica, a reduced sentence of 18 months. Sarah sat in the second row, her hands clasped so tightly her knuckles turned white.
Relief and grief at the same time. Justice doesn't feel the way I expected.
When the bailiff led them away, the room emptied. Sarah stayed. She stared at the empty defendant's table. All that anger, and now just silence. One chapter closed, but the next, the civil suit, the life she'd rebuild, waited outside. 6 months later, Sarah's attorney called with the final outcome of the civil case. The clinic's seized assets had been distributed. She was awarded $480,000.
They can't give me back what was taken. But this is a start.
She deposited the check, then sat with a blank notepad and a pen, sketching something she hadn't dared imagine before.
I want to be a mother. On my own terms, with my own consent. For real this time.
The next day, she walked into a legitimate fertility clinic, one with windows and honest paperwork.
I am here to discuss IVF. I want to start a family, my own, in full awareness.
The specialist explained the process: medication, monitoring, embryo transfer, with careful clarity.
This is the first time I felt in control of my own body in years.
She left with a calendar of appointments and a quiet hope she hadn't allowed herself in a long time. 2 months later, a thin pink line appeared on the test stick in Sarah's trembling hand.
It worked. A tiny life, starting with my consent.
At the clinic, the doctor pointed to a flickering heartbeat on the ultrasound monitor. Weeks passed. Her body changed, softly rounding. Each flutter and kick felt like a quiet reclamation. She cleared a corner of her apartment and bought pale yellow paint, the color her grandmother had loved.
Eleanor, after the woman who showed me what a mother should be.
She placed the framed photo on a new shelf in the nursery, next to a tiny onesie.
Linda's name won't be on the birth certificate, just mine.
No calls from prison. No last-minute pleas. She'd blocked every channel. The silence was her shield. Her due date was 2 weeks away. The nursery was ready, the name written on the wall in soft calligraphy: Eleanor Rose Whitmore. On a spring morning, the first contraction clenched her abdomen, a sharp reminder that everything was about to change. Hours of labor passed in a rhythm of pain and focus, until a final push brought a newborn's cry. The doctor placed the baby on her chest, a wet, squirming weight that felt like the center of the universe.
Eleanor, you are here. You are real.
Tears streamed down her face as she laughed, a sound she didn't recognize as her own. A nurse soon returned, holding a clipboard and a pen. "Time to make it official," she said gently. Sarah took the birth certificate, her eyes scanning to the line that mattered most.
Only my name. No Linda. No one else.
A family built from choice, not violation. She held Eleanor close, the certificate resting on the blanket, and for the first time in years felt completely whole. Later that week, Sarah arranged the birth certificate beside Eleanor's sleeping face and took a photo.
She needs to see this. She needs to know she'll never be part of this child's life.
She slipped the photo into a plain envelope, no note, only the weight of finality. She drove to the post office and dropped the envelope into the mail slot, her hand steady. A week later, in the federal prison, a mailroom clerk handed Linda a thin letter. She tore it open, expecting a legal notice or perhaps a pleading letter from her daughter. Instead, she found only the photograph, the birth certificate with her name absent.
She had a baby, and she named her after my mother, not me.
The photograph trembled in her grip, the final proof that she was permanently, irrevocably shut out. No tears at first, just a hollow, disbelieving stare. Then the first crack in her composure. Weeks later, an envelope stamped with the federal prison's return address landed on Sarah's doorstep. She recognized her mother's handwriting instantly. Her thumb traced the edge, then stilled.
I don't need to know what's inside. I already know what matters.
She carried the unopened letter to the kitchen sink and struck a match. The paper blackened and curled, its words reduced to ash without ever being read. That afternoon, she drove to the old cemetery where her grandmother rested under a sprawling oak. She knelt by the headstone, the infant carrier beside her, and brushed old leaves from the engraved name.
This is Eleanor. She has your name. And a mother who will never sell her.
A breeze stirred the oak leaves, and Sarah smiled, a soft, unhurried thing, earned through years of refusing to break. The cycle had ended, not with a scream, but with a child who would never know the weight of being sold. Sarah settled into the armchair by the window, her daughter a featherweight asleep against her chest. The infant breathed in steady rhythm, untroubled by the world that had tried to claim her before she existed. Sarah's gaze wandered to the mantelpiece, where her grandmother's framed photograph rested among fresh flowers. The woman who had taught her what real love meant, the woman who now shared her name with this new life. She turned her head toward the window, where the cherry tree outside was heavy with blossom. The light caught her face, a face no longer guarded, no longer braced for the next betrayal. She pressed a kiss to the top of Eleanor's downy head and whispered nothing at all. Outside, the apartment building glowed with warm lights as dusk settled, a quiet fortress against the encroaching dark. In the living room, the grandmother's photo seemed to catch the last golden light, a silent blessing over 2 generations. And Sarah understood, with a certainty deeper than memory, that the chain had been broken, not with a clang but with a whisper that sounded like hope.